look, I know you might not want it to happen, but unfortunately for you, Liverpool are going to be back in action on Saturday when they face Aston Villa. Of course, nobody really looking forward to the games at the moment after 6 defeats in 7 for Liverpool. But hey, this could always be the one in which they turn it around and put together a good performance, or let's hope so anyway. And of course, because the match is coming up, we've been here with Arne Slot at the AXA Training Centre, which you can see just over my shoulder, to hear from him about the game and his thoughts on that, and of course his thoughts about Liverpool's recent run of poor form and the reasons behind that. And I have to say, actually, it's kind of stood out to me today, really, how calm his demeanour was. There was no sense of panic in him. I mean, I got that from his selection, really, in midweek. He didn't seem to be rattled by all the talk that's around him, and did exactly what he thought was the right thing to do. And I think that really came across, as I say, in his demeanour today. He didn't seem panicked at all. He seemed really calm, and he seemed like a guy who's got the answers. Of course, we will find out whether that is the case on Saturday and going forward, but he certainly gives off that vibe at the moment. But of course, the question is, did he have good news? Did he have anything that was able to ease the nerves of supporters? Well, I'll start with the team news, and it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of that, I have to say. The good news, and I think great news actually, is that Ryan Gravenberch is back in training yesterday, and he will train today as well, so he is expected to be available for selection. Of course, he turned his ankle, didn't he? But it seems to be easing up now and should be back in the squad to face Villa. And I have to say, it's only been a short layoff. I imagine he goes straight back into that starting 11, because he's utterly crucial to this team, isn't he? And I don't think there are many, really, or anybody in this squad who can replicate what he offers. So I do expect him to be straight back into the starting 11. Unfortunately, not good news on a couple of other injuries. Curtis Jones, of course, he missed the last game, as many of them did, but that was partly through injury as well, and he's not expected to be back in because of that injury. We're not entirely sure what that is. It doesn't seem too far off, but he has got an injury that's going to keep him out, and the same is true for Alexander Isak as well. I believe he's got a groin issue, and the manager said he kind of gave them a small chance, but he said 99.9% not in the squad for the Villa game. But I would say the fact that there's that kind of 0.1%, and you might call me an optimist for this, it does suggest to me that they're both not a million miles away. So you do wonder, does that mean they're going to be ready for Real Madrid, or maybe the game against Manchester City that follows? It doesn't seem, if you say 99.9% rather than they're completely out, it doesn't seem like they're a million miles away from being fit. So hopefully they can be involved in the squads for those two. I mean, particularly Isak. I think Jones is a brilliant player, and I would be having him in the starting 11 a lot at the moment. But I think with Isak, the fact he can score you a goal off the bench will be really, really helpful in some of these big games. So hopefully both of them will be fit, but we'll see how they get on in terms of the recovery. And of course, still got Giovanni Leone out. He's out for the rest of the season. Jeremy Frimpong's expected to be out for a little while longer yet, and Alisson Becker still sidelined. So when you throw in Jones and Isak on top of that, it's a fairly lengthy injury list, certainly compared to last season where Liverpool barely got injuries. And I was so full of praise for the medical staff, the management, for how they managed that and got through the season in that way. And I also talked up the fact that it was a big factor in Liverpool going on some of the runs they did. The consistency they had in squad selection and team selection in particular gave them that chemistry. Unfortunately, they're already gelling players in at the moment from the summer, and they've got injuries to contend with. It makes things, everything kind of 10 times harder than it was last season. But as I say, hopefully a few short-term ones there. Hopefully we see Jones and Isak back before long. So, of course, there were also questions about his squad, and it was suggested, wasn't it, after midweek, he kind of made some comments about looking at City and Chelsea starting 11s for those League Cup games. Even though they made quite as many changes, they didn't look as weak as Liverpool. And you may have seen at the press conference what Arne Slot said. He got twirled a little bit and kind of made it seem like he wasn't happy with the squad he's got. Didn't feel he had strong enough options, but he was quite keen actually to talk about that, because he was asked a question about that answer that he gave and said, "I'm glad you brought this up." And he said, "Look, I wanted to speak about this." And he said, "I'm happy with the team, the quality we've got, and I'm convinced by the strategy and the policy that we have." So no qualms from the manager in terms of the squad he's got. He did mention the fact that, look, we've got a few injuries, we've got other things that we've been dealing with that haven't been helpful. Of course, not just the injuries, so Alisson Becker, Leone, Frimpong, it lessens your options in that immediate moment, but also the fact that some of them have had difficult pre-seasons, of course. He didn't feel like Hugo Ekitike could go at full pelt early in the season, could he? He couldn't play 90 minutes, or certainly not 90 minutes on the bounce, because he only came in kind of later in the summer. Alexander Isak, everybody knows about his situation. He hasn't been fit. He's been doing a pre-season whilst he's been at Liverpool, and then of course he's ended up picking up an injury in the end. So he's talked about all these as kind of not helpful, but he's insisted that he's absolutely happy with what he's got in terms of his squad options. And it's interesting, isn't it, that answer got took out, maybe taken out of context a little bit. This is going to happen more to Arne Slot when he's not winning games. It didn't happen very much at all last season, but at the moment he's not winning, and when you're not winning, you've got nothing to really defend yourself with. So I think the only way out of this, and the only way to avoid being kind of twisted in his words, is to start winning games, unfortunately for him. And of course, as they look to do that and Liverpool look to recover from this poor run of form that they're in, it's not helpful to concede as many goals as they are at the moment. Of course, 14 goals conceded in the Premier League this season is just, it's a really poor defensive record, isn't it, unfortunately. And he was asked if he might kind of change his approach to games and his tactical approach to try and find solutions to that. And the question that was put to him was, would you consider maybe even throwing Joe Gomez in at right back, or does that kind of thing go against your beliefs? And he was actually interested on this. He said, it does go against my beliefs, but I've won games in the past, City away last season, for example, that went against my beliefs. I would be more open to adapt in certain situations. And to be fair to Arne Slot, I think we have seen adaptation. I think we have seen him try different things. I think you think of the shape against Crystal Palace away, albeit it was an absolute disaster. You think of the shape against Frankfurt away, that went better with the 4-4-2. But he is trying things, isn't he? So I don't doubt for a second that he would do something a bit different if he thought it would get in the result. Whether that is Joe Gomez at right back or not, we'll kind of have to see. He might wish he'd done that at Brentford, actually, but I do think he's shown a flexibility, so I don't doubt that he's got solutions to some of these problems and in-house solutions to some of these problems. And it'd be interesting over the coming games, particularly at City away. Does he go with something different in that one as well as he did last season? So dramatic, but it worked so well, didn't it? But if there's one thing that the manager is happy about at the moment, he's not happy with the chances they're giving away, the goals they're giving away, but he's happy with what they're doing going forward at the moment. So he's happy that they're creating chances at the moment. It's one of the things that gives him confidence that Liverpool will recover, is the quality of his players and the fact they're creating chances at the moment. And he expects actually more goals. Now, that's one thing I would maybe have an issue with him on, in terms of he's kind of right and he's kind of not. So Liverpool this season have got 16 goals from 15.8 expected goals. So they're roughly running in line with that. They overperformed massively at the start of the season and they're underperforming in recent games. So I think he's kind of right in that in recent games, Liverpool have not really got the rub of the green in terms of the finishing versus the chances they're creating. But they massively did at the start of the season, and so they find themselves roughly where they are. I think the hope from the manager is that they keep creating expected goals at the degree that they are now, and they start to finish in line with that. And if they do that, then he's right, the attack will improve going forward. But as I say, as the season as a whole, it's roughly in line. So I don't think he can have too many qualms, and I do think the main priority is to just tighten things up at the back as well. And away from the match, actually, this is one I just wanted to finish up. It was an interesting question because of his reaction to it. He said it was something he really did not expect to be asked, and maybe that's because Liverpool are in poor form at the moment. But he was asked about his contract situation. Now, you may have seen there were reports recently that those contract talks have stalled, or they're not taking place at the moment because Liverpool's form is poor. I would take that with a pinch of salt. It's not very FSG long-term strategy. Michael Edwards, the way they think about these things, to take a 7-game sample, even if it's a really bad one, and use that to judge the manager. They will be looking at the underlying numbers, every aspect, what he's been given to deal with, injuries, all the mitigating factors that you can put into it around whether he has given them a performance level they think is worth a new contract. And he was interested around this, so he said, he was laughing because he didn't expect it, and then he said, my focus is completely on getting Liverpool back to winning ways. We never speak about contracts in the press conferences. So I thought he was interesting really on that, in that he doesn't really expect one to be announced shortly, but it'll be interesting to see whether he is going to get one soon, because of course he signed a 3-year contract when he arrived, we're getting kind of to the midway point of that. Liverpool will have to make a decision at some point soon, won't they, you'd think, whether to sign him up or not. But of course, it would probably be helpful to the whole mood around the place and to his cases for getting that, even despite what I've just said, to maybe just win a few games. It would make everyone feel a little bit better and everyone feel a bit more like they want to dish out a contract, that's for sure. So we will see whether he can start on that road on Saturday. As I said in my post-match after midweek, I think the pressure is on in these 3 games to get wins because the players have been rested. He's got a strong enough 11. It's at home and it's against a good side, but not a side that you think is going to pepper you with long balls. So I think it's a really, really important game this on Saturday against Aston Villa. And of course, I will be in the Anfield press box to offer my review of the game, and hopefully we're talking about a win. But in the meantime, if you can like, you can subscribe, I would appreciate that massively, and I'll see you guys on Saturday.